What if I told you that ambition, that dream, that goal that you had isn't impossible, isn't as big as you think? All it needs is for you to start, for you to say the cog is way too stuck and you need to move it a little forward. I am your host, Eliezer, and I bring you the blueprints of the Monarch, the keys and the structures to ensure that what you start will succeed and will flourish no matter what. Welcome as we dive into the blueprints of the Monarch. Let's go. So to properly define the blueprints of the monarchs, we first have to find out the origin of blueprints and monarchs for me personally. So we're going to start with monarch and let me explain. When I did a bit of study of most empires, kingdoms, and dynasties, I came to realize one thing about their families. Every one of them had to be ensured they were distinct from the rest. What do I mean by that? I mean, let's look at the diet. The way they ate was very healthier and very rich compared to everybody else. Let's look at the education system. You would find they would learn multiple languages. They would learn how to talk to other dignitaries of other countries. They would find a way to negotiate business trade. They would try to ensure that they were up and ahead above everybody else in the country, in the system, because leading takes a heavy amount of grace. It takes a heavy amount of knowledge. It takes a heavy amount of power. So they had to ensure that they accumulated everything that made them more powerful than the rest. Let me go on. So what does that entail? It entails that for people to be a certain way, for people to be above the rest, you have to be very distinct. What do I mean? I mean set apart. So you cannot act the rest and call yourself a monarch. You cannot be like everybody else and call yourself a monarch. You cannot think like the rest and be a monarch. So you have to be deliberately distinct. You have to be deliberate about every choice you make to be absolutely different. But different doesn't necessarily mean good. So everything that you need to do must be in line with you being the greatest version of yourself in that specific area, in that specific field that you want to be the best in. That is where the blueprints of the monarch origin came from. Looking at my personal life, I had to undergo very serious of tests, challenges throughout all my life. And I had a choice to make: be like the rest and just throw in the towel, or push in, conquer, and become the greatest version of myself. And that's what I do every single day. I wake up, tell myself, I gotta be a better version of myself than I was yesterday. And hopefully by the time that you spend with us, you are going to be better monarchs than you are already. Because I genuinely believe that the fact that you are here is because you know you are meant to do greater. You are meant to achieve bigger. You are destined for greatness. And I trust and believe in that part of you. All right, so now when we talk about the blueprints, a blueprint is simply a guide or an instruction manual of how you ought to build, create, or navigate through a certain system or a certain structure. So when I termed the blueprints of the monarch, it's simply I was trying to instill and say these are the mindsets, the principles, the statutes, and the ambition that one needs to be to succeed in any field. And I strongly believe that these principles can elevate any person of any field from one level to the next. It doesn't matter whether you're at level 100 and want to be to the next 1,000. These are the right blueprints for you. And it doesn't matter if you're at level 0. These are the right blueprints for you. They are for everybody to be able to use and catch up in life. How do I know? I've been using them every single day of my life. I am not where I want to be, but I am far better off than where I was 10 years ago, than where I was last year, than where I was 3 years ago, because I've been using the same repeat and repeat and repeat. They work every single time. And I can assure you, they will be able to elevate that destiny of yours. So stick right in and let's go on with the blueprints. And many may be wondering, Eliezer, how did you come up with these blueprints? Well, I would have to start with how my upbringing was. So, growing up, sadly, I came from a broken home. My father was never around, and my mother passed away at a very, very young age. But thankfully, I had a wonderful, loving family around me. I'm thankful for my aunts and uncles who stepped in and tried to take care of me at a very young age. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am right now, and I will forever be grateful. But it wasn't always the easiest. There were times where I would literally feel like the weight of the world was upon me. It felt like everything was crushing, but I had a choice, either to give in and become like the rest. Everybody else would have said, Eliezer, you become just a drunkie, you become a junkie. But I said no, because I knew that there is something bigger that I can do with myself. There must be something greater that I can do. Why do I have these hopes and aspirations? It wasn't because so that I can throw in the towel. So I decided to get those life challenges and try to use them to mold me into the person that I am today. I'm not saying you need to have challenges to be a best version of yourself. Actually, I would hope most of you watching this never have to go through some of the things that I went through, honestly and genuinely. But I would say without that, I wouldn't be able to tell my story. I wouldn't be able to learn what I learned. So even though I was going through those challenges, I had many talents as well. And one of the talents I had was that I was academically gifted. But that is not always an upside. Due to the academic gifts that I had, I used to find school very boring. And that is when I started realizing certain aspects of my personality. You would find while I'm in class, I would rather be reading a novel or anything else, like Think Big by Dr. Ben Carson or Everybody's Learning, because I would be even a few weeks ahead of everybody because I had already studied everything I had. School was really boring for me and I could teach myself so easily. And that is how I would always find myself in the top of the class. So that was very boring in a way that it didn't feel like I was able to practically put the knowledge I was being given to use. And that's when I started researching more about entrepreneurship. And in the ninth grade, I had my first business venture, which I'm going to make a full podcast on. But let's just say, sadly, it did not end as successfully as I hoped it did. But through those experiences, I was able to tell key identities about my personality. I was able to tell that for me, smaller things, or should I say, the status quo would never be enough. What everybody else is doing was never going to satisfy me. So I always had to chase bigger, choose bigger. I always had to be more ambitious than everybody else in the room. So once I realized that key aspect of my personality, making many decisions about my destiny was quite easy. For school, my ambitions were very grandeur to an extent that when I saw every teacher was telling us the same thing: go to school, get a job, get a house, get a car. And what I always wondered was, what about being the next big thing? What about helping the common man? What about creating businesses and jobs for others to be able to get those jobs? Because think about it, in my country alone, 20,000 people graduate as doctors every single year. So, meaning in 5 years, we're going to have over 100,000 doctors. What about the people who are already employed as doctors? So, where are they going to go? So, you will find that the supply and demand was never going to be met. And I realized that from a very, very young age. So, I already instituted in myself of the fact that this wasn't going to work for me. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. No, I'm just saying it was too clustered. It was too clustered for me. It just felt like the safe way, and I didn't want to do everything safe. I wanted to do something, whether as unsafe as it would be very fulfilling at the end of the day, where I would say, Eliezer, you tried, you succeeded, or I failed, but the fact that my ambitions were met, that was the most important thing. So that's why I define success very differently, which is one of the episodes of the podcast that we're going to be doing. I'm going to dive deep into success because I believe success has been lied to people a lot. And As a 12-year-old, it just didn't fit right with me, of the fact that that was the lie we were being told. So, because I had that early awakening, from a very young age, I decided I was not going to study in my own country, because I read somewhere in a book, which I do not remember as of now, but I was told the fact that if you ever want to do and achieve great things, one of the first steps is move out of your hometown. I decided to take it a bit bigger. I was going to move out of my country and try to make as many connections outside. The first thing that I chose was the fact that I wanted a country with a stronger currency. Number two, I wanted a country which was instilled to say they have a greater education system than mine. And the third thing is that I wanted a country I could make as many connections as I could. So I'm not going to mention names of countries, but the first choice, let's just say it was more expensive. The second choice was quite very expensive as well. So the third choice was where I am right now. The reason I chose it was because it aligned with these three things. And the fourth one was the fact that I could work and study at the same time, because I was a self-sponsored person. So I had to be able to grind and be able to be able to sustain myself while doing the study. Now, years passed, graduated my 12th grade, managed to ensure that I secured a spot in Europe, worked multiple jobs while in my country, saved enough money to travel as a teenager from my country to Europe, came here with $100 to my name. That was not an easy transition, but if I had not taken that step, then I wouldn't be true to myself. If I had not taken that step, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And that's the thing about being a monarch, is that it requires bold steps for you to conquer. Because can you imagine how scary it was? I arrived in a country that they barely speak English. They barely have any person from my country with a bare minimum of $100 to my name, and I have to survive throughout, and I have to continuously sustain myself to pay for school. Guess what I did? Immediately, I was in my school city. I signed up for a factory job, started working in a factory, and ensure that I was under the factory accommodation, so that I was saving enough money to pay for school and everything else. But that wasn't the end of it. I hated that factory job. I'm thankful for it because it was able to give me enough money to save, but I hated every part of that factory job. I continuously continued applying to as many international companies that I could, because I believed I had a rich CV from the multiple businesses and the multiple jobs that I did when I was back home in my country. So here comes, I get a wonderful job in a multi-international company 6 months later, which we'll do an episode on as well. And we'll talk why I stayed the time I stayed and why the time to leave, I had to leave, which is gonna be a wonderful, wonderful podcast story. So, what was the point of that story? You see that the fact that in the story of transition, there was a lot of ambition, there was a lot of risk, but the attitude was all the same. It was all about growth. I decided to come to a place where I would expand my vision, I would be challenged. And genuinely, I can tell you, of my time being here, the risks, the challenges, the hardships that I faced have really provoked me to even want to do greater and bigger things than I ever thought. At first, I thought it would take me 50 years to even amass $1 million. But ever since the challenges that I've taken and how I've bazookaed through them, I am absolutely convinced, if I put in these blueprints and enough energy and everything that I have been telling you right now, I can amass $1 million in the set period of time, which is the challenge that we're gonna come talk to you about. And so right now, I've challenged myself in order to aspire and inspire as many people as we can. The fact that we're gonna build a business which is gonna be from a net worth of €1 to $1 million in evaluation within a period of 1 year. It's not wishful thinking. I have been creating the product for the last 2 years, and it is almost ready for launch. And I believe with this product, once launched in Africa, it's gonna change the whole stratosphere. It's gonna change how everybody views my continent, and it's gonna change the whole direction of the world. And so I want you to stick with me and watch us grow together as we are able to do this great and massive thing. So many may ask, why so ambitious? Why do you want to take up this challenge? I mean, you can just do it in the background and no one should even know, because the more money people know, the more scary it's going to be for you. It's not really about the attention to me. It's about how can I impact someone's life? Because I believe life is not worth living if you do not impact someone else. Life is not worth living if you do not change someone's life. I genuinely believe the purpose that we live is so that we can help somebody else. So the whole purpose of this podcast, the whole purpose of this challenge is to inspire that person who believes that dream and ambition of theirs is impossible, who believes they can't make it to be the greatest and the next big thing, who thinks they will amount to nothing. Well, I'm here to tell you that's a lie, and you should never believe that. Never ever believe that. And if you can look at me and say, if he can do it, maybe I can do it, then I have done more than enough in my lifetime. If one person's life can be changed, then I've accomplished my destiny. So that is the whole goal of the entire challenge. It's not about amassing wealth. It's about inspiring the next generation. It's about inspiring the current generation. It's about making a legacy worth living. So I am Eliezer, and I welcome you once again to the Blueprints of the Monarch. Stick around as we change the course of the world.